if you understand why, you also generally understand why asking why is bad form. And if you understand, for those in the know, it's because they understand that everything is necessary, right? The good, the bad, it's all necessary. And that applies in life, in art, even in morality, in the evolution of human psychology and our morality. And today I'm returning to um, our discussion on what is a new series, American Music. Who likes American music? We like American music. I like American music. Chances are you probably like American music too, at least in some form. And if not, I totally understand that as well. But I actually wanted to pick up where I left off yesterday. What started as a seemingly simple argument against Bob Dylan and the Nobel Laureate Association, in the sense that Bob Dylan, who was a pop star, a music pop star from the 60s or the 70s or whatever the silly ages were, and he won a Nobel Prize, and I thought it was going to be a simple analysis. My thesis was that Bob Dylan is silly, and that, but I realized as I looked at it more that I think I would take my argument further to say I don't think the Nobel Association should even exist, because when the characteristic nature of life as modern people is that there's a perpetual war, I don't think they serve any purpose, and I don't think they do any good. And when you think about it, that it's a bunch of dorks who pays artists and humanitarians millions of dollars to then put their name and their award on them, as if the Nobel Prize Institute is claiming them, like putting their dirty little paws on them, right? So I don't know that I buy it. I mean, I buy the credit of the individual artists and scientists and pop music stars who can apparently win Nobel Prizes for literature, right? So then the whole thing seems silly to me. Like, he's out of place and out of line and out of relation. This organization is out of line, out of place, and that they serve no purpose in existing. So my further thesis goes, Bob Dylan is silly, and also that, and irrelevant, and also that so is the Nobel Prize Institute. It's also irrelevant, and it also serves no purpose. Um, so moving on to our, if you're curious how this all relates, again, it's kind of thematic in the music. It's common that, I don't think people necessarily understand why the lower arts in America have always focused around a certain tension. It's because it follows the same in the high art world in nobility as it always has, and that's there, wherever you go, there's tension between groups and individuals, and the art is law based on feeling and belief that reflect that, right? It's a picture of the morality, if you will. So in America, it was common, it's how punk came to be a thing. It's how many things came to be things here. When people go, oh, I can't have my own casino, fine, I'll go make my own. Oh, I can't be led in the punk show, I'll start my own punk band, right? There's been a lot of great music and art and just general competition that's been fueled by hatred and envy, and this country has always worked that way. I think this country has always been fueled by greed and hatred and envy more than love or brotherly love or anything. And I think, as you can see from the model, it works just fine, even if you falsely keep it alive by constantly bailing out these organizations and institutions and people who would otherwise naturally died. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast, right? That's why it's called Leviathan. So, three artists today. We have the Offspring, Leonard Cohen, and Slayer. So first song is by Leonard Cohen, and it's called There's a War. There's a war? Who says there's a war? There's no war. All right, beginning here. There is a war between the rich and poor, a war between the man and the woman. There's a war between the ones who say there's a war and the ones who say there isn't. There's no war. Why don't you come on down back to the war? That's right, get in it. Why don't you come on back to the war? It's just beginning. Verse 2. Well, I live here with a woman and a child. The situation makes me kind of nervous. Yes, I rise up from her arms. She says, I guess you call this love. I call it service. Whew. Jeez, it's like you see where the song Hallelujah comes from. I think of the song as belonging to Jeff Buckley, but, because he's a far better singer. And, people can argue about that. But again, like Bob Dylan, a lot of these guys, they have terrible voices. They don't sound good. Um, You cannot stand what I've become. You much prefer the gentleman I was before. I was so easy to defeat. I was so easy to control. I didn't even know there was a war. Right? So he's growing up. Leonard Cohen is becoming a man. Why don't you come on back to the war? Don't be embarrassed. Why don't you come on back to the war? You can still get married. I think a lot of people are saying no. Um, Good luck with the war then, by yourself. There's a war between the rich and poor, a war between the man and woman. There's a war between the left and right, a war between the black and white, a war between the odd and the even. No, there isn't. Chorus. Why don't you come on back to the war, pick up your tiny burden? Why don't you come on back to the war, let's still get even, right? So it's perpetual revenge, perpetual punishment, right? That's the morality of it. Why don't you come back to the war? Can't you hear me speaking? No, because if you're speaking evil, then no one will hear you, right? Because they believe in what they think is good, and everyone believes in what's good. So basically, we have to condemn everyone, and everyone has to die. So this is why we need to abolish Nobel Prize. It already seems like crime think to me. How can you even have a institution of peace in a world that runs on war, right? It doesn't even make sense. So this next one is by the Offspring's album Ignition, before Smash, which is the one they blew up on. And maybe I'll do Smash sometime in the song. But this song's called We Are One. And again, it's American and it's punk. So remember, this is the whole, like, I don't remember if the story with them goes, they're trying to get into a Social Distortion concert and they wouldn't be let in, so they went and made their own band. I don't know if that's true, but again, that's many a band and many a company and many a person. Oh, so this is We Are One. We are one with ourselves. We don't give a shit about anyone else. Well, it won't be wrong until our day is in the sun is going to stop. The walls come tumbling down. We are one. We are free. We are headed for obscurity. We are one. We are weak. We are going to make ourselves extinct. We are one. You know it's true. Don't fuck with us or we'll fuck with you. It's a mentality that kills the best. We better stop. The walls come tumbling down. We are one. We are free. We are headed for obscurity. We are one. We are weak. We are going to make ourselves extinct. We are one, and it won't be news when we hang ourselves with one collective noose. Well, it won't be long until our day in the sun is going to stop and the walls come tumbling down. We are one. We are free. We are headed for obscurity. We are one, and we are weak. We are going to make ourselves extinct. The bigger they come, the harder they fall. The bigger they come, right? And the rest is kind of pop music format all the way down. The bigger they come, the harder they fall, one and all, right? And there's a song of taking joy in revenge, right? Or the destruction of something. Compared to our Sarah Teasdale poem when she said, there's a big difference between feeling guilty and not caring. And that makes all the difference. So last, we have quite the ditty here. This is Disciple by Slayer, aka the song is also known as God Hates Us All. And this album that's titled God Hates Us All with the aforementioned song was released on 9/11. No joke. And if you can imagine the record company and them, of course, they didn't want that. That wasn't intentional. That was freak incident, right? It wasn't ironic. We're not assigning extra meaning here like Alanis Morissette, right? It was already in the zeitgeist, and as well as then there's your happenstance, because there's so many other incidents in art where you see these kinds of patterns and thoughts, and again, where what you see on the inside comes outside, and then things began to manifest in the world, and before long you can see it, right? So anyway, they did the wise thing, and I think they quickly canceled the release and maybe re-released it later. But this is called Disciple by Slayer, and it goes. Drones since the dawn of time, compelled to live your sheltered lives. Not once has anyone ever seen such a rise of pure hypocrisy. I'll instigate, I'll free your mind, I'll show you what I've known all this time. God hates us all. God hates us all. You know it's true, God hates this place. You know it's true, he hates this race. Homicide, suicide, hate heals, you should try it sometime. Strive for peace with acts of war, the beauty of death we all adore. I have no faith distracting me. I know why your prayers will never be answered. Um, God hates us all. Yeah, he effing hates me. And he goes on. Pessimist, terrorist, targeting the next mark, global chaos, feeding on hysteria, cutthroat, slit your wrist, shoot you in the back, fair game. drug abuse, self-abuse, searching for the next high. Sounds like a lot of whole hell is spreading all the time. I'm waiting for the day the whole world fucking dies. Well, tell us how you really feel, Tom. And these are things that you can't say in good company. Come on, Mr. Araya. Um, I got a story about a Christian. I was wearing a Slayer shirt once, and him being the civilized Christian he looked at me, saw the Slayer shirt, and he says, how fans communicate is if you're a Slayer fan and you're wearing a Slayer shirt and you see another Slayer fan wearing a Slayer shirt, you go Slayer. So in this case, this guy looks at me and goes, "Oh, their guitarist just died, right?" And that was Jeff Hanneman, right? And R.I.P. But he said that to me, and I said yes. And he goes, "Okay, he's a Satanist. They're Satanists," and he's wrong because I think most of the band is either just non-Christian or Christian, right? And he goes, "Well, they're Satanists, and I hate Satanists, and I want them to die." And it's just like, yes, that is what you can expect from Christians generally. Like anything that differs from them, anything outside of them, generally what they don't understand, including any and all art, if it can't be made to serve a system and be sellable therein, it has no value and it doesn't exist. So when I talk about the tension between individuals and groups, this is exactly what I mean. Our fundamental personality and the very nature of people's being and their personality being fundamentally different from one another, yet the whole thing can strict towards one purpose and end, and that's what's moral, and that's what's good. That's not what's useful or what's truthful or what's even truly moral, in the sense that, well, if we went by what's moral, we need to abolish the peace, what is it called? The peace institution. All peace institutions need to be abolished because they're going to get in the way inevitably of our total 24/7 warfare that encircles this planet, right? The nonstop war between the three superpowers. Like, we just cannot have something like the Nobel Peace Committee, especially if they're going to bother giving millions of dollars to Bob Dylan, right? You see how irrelevant and stupid these institutions are and how silly and out of touch these artists are, whose law and what do they stand for and what are they really doing. It's just pop music. But I'm trying not to be too hard here on my people and our artists, but let me keep reading, going with Tom here. Waiting for the day the whole world fucking dies. I never said I wanted to be God's disciple. Oh yeah, when I said that we sacrifice the future and no one ever agreed to that we sacrificed and crucified the whole human future and no one actually ever technically agreed to that or voted on that or asked for that. He's kind of expressing that notion here. I never said I wanted to be God's disciple. I'll never be the one to blindly follow. Man-made virus infecting the world, self-destruct human time bomb. What if there is no God? Would you think the fucking same? Wasting your life in a leap of blind faith. Wake the fuck up and can't ignore what I say. I got my own philosophy. I hate everyone equally. You can't tear that out of me. No segregation, separation, just me and my world of enemies. He's Comanche. I never said I wanted to be God's disciple. I never wanted to be the one to blindly follow. I'll never be the one to bear the cross disciple. I reject this fucking place. I despise this fucking place. And the rest is pop music format. I reject this fucking race. I despise this fucking place. I reject this fucking race. I despise this fucking place. I reject this fucking race. I despise this fucking place. Yeah, you could not have released that on like 9/11. If you think from a PR and a marketing and an image consulting standpoint, like that's just bad timing. Oh man, that's horrible, because of course these days everyone just has thoughts and feelings. That was actually a little bit more meaningful and real. These days everyone just does some meaningful gesture and profanes like some sort of community or involvement, when in reality these people in this culture are so disjointed and so sold out and generally kind of empty, and the world is increasingly seeing that. So, and the damnedest thing is it's no one's fault, right? Like, just like the Bukowski poem goes, I said poets can be angry and cranky and malicious and don't fail to hear the delights of joy and voluptuousness in their plaints and accusations. But at the same time, they can also be very forgiving and all that kind of thing. And he said the same thing, right? We're just born into this. So I maintain what I said. Bob Dylan is silly. I still like American music. We still like American music. They still like American music. In fact, I've talked about Kurt Vonnegut Jr. before. He said of America and American music and culture that the one reason the world forgives us or doesn't truly hate us is our music. And I don't know if that goodwill has worn thin. So for any viewers or listeners who find their way in here and they're fans of American music, or whether they're from America or not, let me know. Are we still redeemable by way of our art or our music? Are we still forgivable, or do we have to finally go after the what's it called? The stupid, pointless thing that exists, the institution, the what's it, the peace one, that one, right? Why do we even have that? Like, and this reminds me, next up will be back to the literary series, George Orwell, Politics in the English Language, where he says, most people would agree that in modern times, the English language is in a bad way, to which we could say, no, Orwell, everyone's happy, right? Just like everything else, things are good. Sure, they could be double good, and I guess they really could be double plus good, but they're still good, right? And just wait till they're double plus good. We keep building this double plus world, and eventually we're going to get there. And I'm Zach Markowski with Sharper Pen Image Consulting. This has been Who Likes American Music? We like American music. Again, for those who want to find the music, this has been The Offspring, Slayer, and Leonard Cohen. So thanks for your time, and I'll catch you next time. Take care.